Titans, strike like a lightning bolt. You feel the ground pounding, that might be the coast. Quick like a joke, like to hit when provoked. Don't you doubt that. That's a Jaguar to a house cat. That's an outcast to a whole squadron. If you talking Houston, then we've got a problem. You'll probably get the horns if you mess with the cattle. Sit back in your saddle and get ready for the fan battle.
Sunday night. Of course, we're coming live to you on Sunday nights when we don't have an active football season. So this is the kickoff episode of season 5. I can't believe it. We did it. This is monumental here because we're still as awful as we were when we started. We make no progress, and we love it.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, I'm going to introduce our commentators for this evening. We do have a very special guest with us. And before we introduce him, I will introduce the ones that you all love. Representing the Titans, we have RJ Ellison.
How y'all doing? It's just another beautiful day out here.
Without AJ Brown, though. Without AJ Brown, I don't know.
And Hellman.
Representing the Jaguars, we have Josh Allen, the second best Josh Allen.
No, we've been through this. In the offseason, Josh Allen goes back to Kentucky, so I am the number one Josh Allen in Jacksonville in the offseason. So
we'll take it. In the Colts, we have Harish Nukala.
No, we can't even hear
we can't. We can't even hear you. See?
Let's see, look.
That's how awful your volume is. Just as good as your team.
That's how much noise the Colts are gonna make this season.
Yep, there you go. What's up? Hey, he finally showed up like the Colts did.
Who still haven't shown up, by the way. So guys, coming back from my new company, new home. I hope y'all are doing well.
And representing the Texans, we have Matt Briggs.
I'm here. Let's do it.
Good, short and sweet. That's the way I like it.
Always.
And we have with us a very special guest tonight. We have Hall of Fame writer John McClain. He currently writes for GallerySports.com. Mr. McClain, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you very much.
So we had some technical difficulties before the show. So Mr. McClain is you might see his voice not matching because he's on via phone, but he is with us on video. So make sure you guys are commenting in the comment section. For those of you watching, give this a heart and a like. And if you have any questions for Mr. McClain as we go, let's do it. So to kick it off, I just want to say that I hear that the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Mattress Mac. And I just love that man. My mom lives in Houston, and I started following him, and I'm a Jaguars fan. I'm a non-biased host, but I'm a Jaguars fan, diehard Jags. I just love that man because after what he did for the people during the hurricane, I just have nothing but respect for him. I actually tweeted him. I can't remember when it was with VT. Me and VT were from the Texans fan battle. We're tweeting with him, and what a great guy. How is he in person?
I'll tell him you said that. I work for him. I was retiring after 48 years in this business, 45 to Houston Chronicle covering the NFL. And as soon as I retired on March 31st, they called me up. So I got an idea I want to talk to you about. And I went into Gallery Furniture, and we talked and hashed out a website he wanted to do, GallerySports.com. And I've been his lead columnist ever since. And what I like about it is I can write about things besides football and the Texans. And I just spent 10 days at Astro spring training, and I'm headed to the Combine for a week. And then I'm going to go to NFL spring meetings in Scottsdale for a week in March. And I got a trip to Vegas scheduled in there. And best thing I liked about it, he told me I'll fly first class everywhere. And so I jumped on that. I still work for my radio station, sportsradio610.com, where I do 3 columns, 2 podcasts, 6 shows a week. And I focus on the Texans, the NFL with the radio station. But I never covered a champion until I got to cover the Astros and write columns last
Right.
season. I thought I would
Yes, sir.
never cover a champion in Houston, and then I finally got to.
Well, so I know that this is a AFC South podcast, but I do have a question since you did attend spring training. How did you like the new Major League Baseball rules?
It's going to take time. The Astros have a young Hunter Brown, came up in September and was outstanding. And I did a column on him, and he said, "You know what? I used all these rules last year. You adjust, you get used to them, then you don't think about them." He said the toughest one is not the pitch clock, because you adjust to the pitch clock. The pitch clock is time the pitcher gets the back from the catcher. He has 15 seconds to throw with no runners on. With a runner on, he's got 20 seconds. That's not the issue. The issue is he can only throw to first base or step off the mound twice. So if he does it twice, the runner on base is going to take a humongous lead knowing he's not going to throw over. And so every pitcher will have to save one of his moves to first base. And the batter's got to be back in the box with 8 seconds left in that pitch count. And there are players like Jose Altuve and Kyle Tucker with the Astros who have this routine they go through. It takes up way too much time. And one of their pitchers, Luis Garcia, has a motion in which he rocks a baby. He's working on pitching faster now. And it was fun in spring training watching those guys, 6 at a time, 6 mounds in bullpen, 6 on plate, 6 catchers, 6 coaches, clocking them and telling them, okay, that was 10 seconds, that was 11. So there are going to be a lot of struggles in baseball and spring training and when the season starts, but eventually they'll have it all taken care of.
Good. My other question is, since you are doing Houston sports in general, have you followed the XFL at all? Are you following, what are they called? The Houston, what is
Roughnecks.
it? Roughnecks, yes.
Oh,
I actually got a
the
chance
last-
to watch that game last week.
You got a chance to watch it. I wouldn't
I
watch
did.
the XFL right now. I've never watched any of those other leagues except the last version of the XFL, which was the second one, and the Houston Roughnecks was the only unbeaten team. Their quarterback was P.J. Tuckers with the Panthers, and their coach was Jim Jones, who I've known for 35 years, because he was a coach with the Oilers. And the only reason I pay attention and retweet everything about the Roughnecks is because of Wade Phillips. And Wade was a head coach with a winning percentage of 60%. And so I hope Wade does well. But I've watched enough bad football from late July through the end of the season. I don't want to see any more bad football before training camp in late July.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. Don't blame you there. Well, let's go around the horn real quick. Who wants to ask the first question? Josh Allen, you look like you're itching.
Yeah, I know that you have a Hall of Fame NFL ballot, and there's a big campaign, or there was a big campaign by the Jags to get Tony Baselli in, and he's in. Now the fans, in Jacksonville are clamoring for Fred Taylor. So I'm just curious to know your thoughts on, do you think that Fred Taylor is Hall of Fame worthy?
Ooh,
Well, first
setting
of
him
all,
up early.
A big push has nothing to do with it. It doesn't matter what talk shows do, what people say online, what teams do. We don't pay attention to that. We get bombarded constantly, and there's 48 of us. I'm also on the seniors committee and the coaches committee, and we're bombarded by fans and media people all the time. And when it's a year-round process, Fred Taylor, the guy that bombards us the most is Pete Prisco, who covered them from their inception, and he was pushing Tony Baselli. And Pete likes to think, he had something to do with it. And the reason Tony got in, and I always told Tony, just be patient, because your career didn't last long, but neither did Terrell Davis and 5 or 6 others. Last year, when Tony got in, we did not vote in any first-timers. We said, look, we got guys that we need to take care of. Thank goodness. Tony was one of them, because when Tony was healthy, and it wasn't long, but he was as good as any offensive tackle I've ever seen, other than Anthony Munoz, who is the greatest left tackle in NFL history. But Tony was close. As far as Fred Taylor, Fred's got the numbers, I'd say yes, he's deserving. But man, there's a lot of running backs out there that played on Super Bowl winners like Roger Craig, and they've all got good numbers. And I'll say this about Taylor. Other than Bo Jackson, I can't remember a big back with the kind of speed that Fred showed. Breakaway speed, good blocker, good receiver. Someday he might make it. I don't know. I'm just one. All it takes is 9 people on our committee to not vote for somebody and keep them out. And then, of course, fans and media rant against the whole committee. And something that really bothers me about it, I hear people say the writers. And I always tell them, dumbasses, why don't you pay attention? We've got Hall of Famers on the committee. We've got broadcasters on our committee. Sam Kavares, who's been in TV forever.
Oh, we're familiar.
Jaguars.
Yeah.
And Sam does a really good job touting his players. And I was happy that Baselli got in there because Sam's finally able to go, man, thank you, finally. And because they're giving a great effort every year. So a long answer to it, I don't have any idea. Does he have the numbers? Of course he does. Nobody ever says Fred Taylor doesn't deserve it.
Right.
The reason guys don't get it is just like the NFL, competition.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Jaguars fans they'll never be satisfied. They've been shit on so much that's, getting Tony Baselli or any player into the Hall of Fame or anyone in general into the Hall of Fame as Jaguars fans, that was enough because it's been a rough 28 years, Mr. McClain. A rough 28 years.
You guys just wanted division. Jaguars are going to be favored. They're going to be good.
You hear that, RJ?
Hey, man.
You hear that, RJ? Yeah.
Let me finish. I was going to say, just like we said coming off the 2017 season.
Oh, well, that's not good. That's bad news. That's bad news.
That's excellent news.
Yeah, except we don't have Tom Coughlin.
We'll see if they can be consistent, man. Hey.
The problem back then, all the players wanted to leave for money, and they didn't pay them. Hopefully, they'll start paying them when they do well like they did. Think of all the guys wanted out of there, beginning with Ramsey, so they could get a big payday, and for whatever reason, they just wouldn't do it. And they didn't have people to know how to work the cap to pay big bucks and still keep their people. So maybe they have those people in place now because I think the AFC South is a whole lot more interesting with the Jaguars being good. And a lot of people in Houston like, well, Jacksonville can do it. We can do it. And that's there was one problem. They had a generational quarterback who was taken first overall. And no matter who the Texans get this year, he's not going to be a generational quarterback like Trevor Lawrence and then Andrew Luck before that.
Oh, man, you're going to upset Harish with Andrew Luck because he still hasn't recovered from that. He still hasn't recovered. Look.
Man.
Don't blame him.
Yeah, that was a rough one.
It's brutal. Yeah.
All right, who else has got a question? RJ?
Yeah, I asked. So, according, we can just talk about the draft. So, do you see what teams do you see trading up for a quarterback this season?
Ooh, good question.
I think Chicago's got to be really careful with the first pick because they want to get the Texans at 2 and the Colts at 4 to get into an AFC South bidding war. And so say they make the trade with the Colts, and we're never going to know who the Texans and the Colts have rated first. It could be Bryce Young, it could be C.J. Stroud, it could be Will Levis. All this is said and done. And now people are trying, ever since they started seeing Anthony Richardson in shorts and T-shirts making all these great throws, his stock's going up. It just blows me away because every year scouts do that. They got all this tape the players ever had, but they care more about what they look like in shorts and T-shirts, throwing against the air with no pressure and nobody covering the receivers. But say the Bears, who obviously want Jalen Carter or Will Anderson Jr., because they can use both immediately. Say they go to the swap with the Colts take a quarterback, and we know Arizona 3 is going to take Carter or Anderson. Well, what if the Texans at 2 decide to trade down a little bit? Somebody trades up to get Carter, and then the Cardinals take Anderson, and then therefore the Bears wishing they had not made that trade because they lose out on one of the 2 best players in the draft, and it'll be Carter or Anderson. I've never seen a draft, and I go back a long way with drafts in which there was going to be so much BSing about this and that, leaks to the national media, and they go could, may, and the truth is nobody there has a clue. And that's why it's going to be so much fun. So intriguing. My personal opinion, I watched every game Alabama played. I watched most games that Ohio State played, and I wanted Bryce Young for a long time. I know how high on him Bill O'Brien is, and a friend of mine who does talk shows in Tuscaloosa for 30 years said he is the single most impressive Alabama player to ever come through here. And those are good endorsements, but if he shows up in combine and he's 5'10" and 195, a lot of people are going to take him off their board. There's never been a quarterback taken in the first round who weighed less than 200, and I'm told he's been working like crazy with a nutritionist, trying to get up to 210. There's nothing he can do about his hair. Kyler Murray tried that, growing his hair out, acting like it hurt when they mashed it down to measure him, and he measured 5'9.5", but he was 207, and then he had to go back to losing weight. So Bryce Young is at least 200, maybe 205, and he's 5'11". I don't think anybody will have a problem taking him at number 2 or number 1.
Well, I'm praying that he's under 200 pounds because I need him to drop. So we can go ahead and take down these little Jaguars.
He ain't dropping that far. No way.
Yeah.
So are you saying that Bill O'Brien's, you think the influence from Bill O'Brien still? I heard you mention something about Bill O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien
loving him
for 2 years, coached
the
Heisman Trophy. And then last year when they didn't have the skill position players they had the year before, or that C.J. Stroud had. Stroud had great receivers both years. This time next year, Marvin Harris is the best player in the country. Now, he's not going first overall. That'll be a quarterback like Caleb, what's his name at USC? My mind's gone blank. Bill O'Brien, when he coached, Caleb Williams. When Bill O'Brien coached there, his problem wasn't coaching. His problem was when they let him be GM, he started getting rid of all their best players. That's what took
we had an ongoing joke on the podcast during Bill O'Brien's time that he was the coach, he was the chef, he was the personal trainer. We had a list of jobs that Bill O'Brien did for the Texans. So yeah, that was our running joke for the longest time. But so Harish, you got a question?
Yeah, I guess we're gonna stay on top of the draft stuff. Obviously, lots of movement in the division. Titans have a new GM. Colts have a new coach. Texans have a new coach. Lots of personnel, front office stuff. What insight can you give us about what these guys are looking for inside and outside, especially as you have new regimes? And I don't think I've seen any specific division have a need at quarterback and across multiple teams like this division does have right now.
First of all, Mike Vrabel is one reason Rand Cawthorn got the Titans job is Vrabel's got more and more influence, and I think that's good. I don't think Mike ever will let A.J. Brown get away. I think the sooner they get rid of Ryan Tannehill, the better, because even if he comes back and stays healthy, he's done everything he can do for that organization. They need to find another quarterback. And I don't care if it's Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, anybody.
Oh, I hope it's Derek Carr.
Everybody loved it when they got rid of A.J. Brown because he had just beat up the division. He had killed the Texans. They were like, what? They traded A.J. Brown? And the Titans have to replace Taylor Lewan. They got 2 free agents in their offensive line who are starters. They need left tackles, good draft of tackles. Most mocks that I've seen with people I trust have them taking different left tackles. The truth is, we don't know, but they do need to start up front because when you got Derrick Henry at 29, he's coming off a good year. You got to think, how many more seasons are they going to get the max out of Henry? And if you don't have an offensive line to block for him, and I think they got to start that, and somehow they got to get another quarterback.
Yeah. Right now, I think we're going to be having to replace 4 offensive line or 4 offensive linemen on our offensive line, because I don't think we're going to pay Nate Davis. We just let go of Terry Lewan. Aaron Brewer is probably not going to be our left guard next season, and I think we're probably going to cut Ben Jones. So hopefully we can get some replacements in this draft. I wouldn't mind going left tackle with the 11th pick, but if one of those quarterbacks, one of the CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, or Anthony Richardson fall, I wouldn't mind getting either one of those 3.
I think the only one's going to be available there is Anthony Richardson.
That 11th pick, right? I think that's an intriguing place to be. It's probably, it is a middle of the road pick. Is there any spice to anybody wanting to trade up? Knowing the Titans' needs, do you think there's a need for them to even need to trade down, or should they trade down, especially all the gaps they have on the offensive line?
I think if the Titans wanted one of those offensive tackles and say all of them were there, they should definitely trade down, assuming they all have all 3 of the top guys rated close together. But, boy, they need some picks. They need cap room. They need to use free agency, and they don't have the cap room. And they're kind of in a difficult situation. And it's I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. Maybe they stick with Danny Hill. I just don't know. I know they like everything he's done as far as is off the field, the culture, the locker room, the leader, the toughness. Does he inspire confidence? Does Ryan Tannehill inspire confidence that he can beat people with the receivers that he has? No, the only person there who inspires confidence is Derrick Henry. And if they don't put some people around him, he's just going to keep getting beat on and taking punishment. And over the end of the year, that's a lot of wear and tear. And I don't care if you are 6'3" and 248.
You're gonna be the next Earl Campbell, beat down and can't walk no more.
Yeah.
Let me tell y'all something about Earl Campbell you don't know. I've written this for years, and I've broadcast it for years. Earl Campbell's career didn't go down because he got used up too much. In his last season of 1983, coming off a strike year in 82, he had almost 1,400 yards. And in the next training camp in 84, they had swapped wide receivers, Mike Renfro for Butch Johnson with the Cowboys. And Butch Johnson was famous for doing the California Quake end zone dance. It ended with him doing the split. So, Oilers at training camp. Back then, they let the media go just about anywhere we wanted. Today, we get shot if we left our little place down in the corner. And I would go climb up high in the coach's tower because most of the time the coaches weren't there, not see everything. So one time, Butch Johnson catches a pass and he runs about 20 yards, and he's just going to go the distance and score, even though nobody's chasing him. He does the California Quake through fans, and he does the split. He gets up and goes back to the huddle. But a while later, Earl Campbell decides he's going to do the same thing. He goes down the left sideline, gets in the end zone, starts the California Quake. Everybody's laughing like crazy. He does the splits. Oop, he tore his meniscus.
Ooh.
They had to help him off the field. And he was never the same because they wouldn't let him get surgery because they wanted to trade him to the Saints, who were coached by Bum Phillips. And they traded him to the Saints for a number 1 pick. It turned out to be a cornerback, Rich Johnson, who never lived up to expectations. But Earl's career ended because of his knee, not because he was overused. And people don't, I don't know how many times I can write it or tell it because I was there and witnessed it, and I know how they treated him until they traded him in October, and that's why his career ended. Now, after his career, he found out he had a congenital spinal defect, and he had to cut him out of a car and undergo like 10 hours of surgery, and he's still not right.
Oh, okay.
That's a lot.
Very, very cool story. Did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that
dropping
either.
knowledge.
Yeah.
Truth bombs. Well, Matt, our resident Texans fan and former Oilers fan and Astros fan and all the Houston things fan.
Right.
You got any questions for Mr. McClain?
Yeah, I actually got a couple.
He's like, let me pull out my legal pad. Number one.
You came on the Texans fan battle with me, BT, and Crenshaw, and you already, you told D'Amico when they played in Houston in the preseason, congratulations on being the head coach. What do you expect D'Amico first year? And my second question, is no receivers got into the Hall of Fame this year. So do you think there'll be multiple next years with Reggie Wayne, Andre Johnson, Torrey Holt, and Devin Hester?
Andrew,
When I saw D'Amico, I loved covering him, liked him, respected him. I remember telling him one time, "You ought to be a coach when your career's over." I never thought he'd be a head coach. And there's like a couple of guys I've told them, "Man, you ought to go into broadcasting. You'd be really good." And so I'd done a column on D'Amico last year when the Texans played their last road game in Santa Clara. And we had a long chat. And then I went over to see him and Kyle Shanahan. A bunch of people from the Texans are with the 49ers because of Shanahan. So it was outside the locker room when they came off the field after pregame warmups. D'Amico came over and we shook hands, and that's when I said, "Let me be the first to congratulate you on being on your first NFL head coaching job." Not having a clue that it would be here, because I actually at that time thought Lovie Smith would be here 2 or 3 years. I didn't know he was going to hire the worst offensive coordinator in history, and if he had a better coordinator, he'd still be the head coach. So D'Amico just laughed about it, and so I have. The way this goes back is everybody wanted D'Amico because he was a hot coordinator. The Broncos scheduled an interview on Thursday before they played the Cowboys. Texans had one Friday. Panthers were interested, and he told his agent, Jimmy Sexton, tell him thanks, no thanks. And he had interviews with the Colts and the Cardinals. And after he got off of his interview with the Texans, he told his wife, he said, "We're going on to Houston. That's where I want. I don't want any of these other jobs." He told his agent, Jimmy Sexton, call them and tell them, "I can't do those interviews because I'm preparing for the Cowboys," which he was. But this was Friday night, and so Sexton told him, and it got out that he had said that. And then I subsequently found out that Nick Caserio and Cal McNair and Hannah McNair's wife, and there were other people on the interview. But when they got off, Caserio, who didn't know D'Amico, and Cal did because he was there every day at practice when D'Amico was playing. And Caserio turned around and said, "We got to get him in here. We got to get him in here, and we can't let him leave." Most guys were just blown away. And one reason D'Amico had told me when I talked to him for his interview, Houston's home. That's my dream job. And I'm thinking, you know what? People are going to think you're absolutely crazy. How would this be your dream job when they just had 2 one-and-done coaches, both minorities? And everybody around the country is going to tell you you're crazy to go there. And he knew, David Culley is retired here in Houston, and he's a great guy. I like him so much. David was just overmatched as a head coach. And then Lovey made Pep Hamilton the coordinator, let him hire all the offensive coaches, call all the plays, determine the personnel. And I've never seen anybody worse at that. And so they're gone. And D'Amico knew that. He knew the ramifications of why they were making these changes. So he wanted to come here. He and his wife, Jamila, she's from here. They got married here while he was playing for the Eagles. They opened a home for wayward kids in Angleton, and they were building a home here. And the difference is now you can't build a home in the suburbs because you're going to be fighting traffic every day. And probably his home's going to be a little bigger than it was before. So they were so happy. I think one reason he's so popular, number one, he was the top coordinator and the number 2 overall candidate for Sean Payton. And the fact that he wanted to come here so bad. I mean, and once they interviewed Sean Payton, I knew they weren't going to hire him. And once they interviewed D'Amico, I knew they would. I knew if he handled it the way he was capable of, he would impress the heck out of them. So now he's here, and I've covered 15 head coaches here, and I've never seen any of them in their introductory news conference impressed the way D'Amico. I'm listening to him talking, I'm thinking, why weren't you that good talking when you were playing? Because he was dynamic, and he was more reserved, and he was always cooperative, but always worried about saying the right and wrong thing. But he inspired people. After it was over, guys like Brian Cushing and Kevin Walter and some of those ex-players, they said, "Man, I want to go suit up, hit somebody." And that's the way the current players felt. Now he's got his staff put together, and everybody wants to know about his offensive staff. And I'm kind of surprised that he didn't hire an ex-NFL coach to be there as a special advisor. I was wanting to hire Kubiak. And because he's going to be on game day, he's going to get advice from somebody who's been in that situation because he's only been a coach for 6 years. And Bobby Slowick, who he's been with, D'Amico was with from 2017 through 22 with Kyle Shanahan, and Kyle was with for 3 years with Washington. Everybody thinks he's going to be really good. I wrote a column on GallerySports.com with Kyle talking to me about Slowick on the record, and then I talked to him off the record, and listening to him talk about Slowick and how this past season was the best offensive season Kyle has had in the NFL. And he said it's not a coincidence that Bobby was my main guy. And so I'm fired up about him. And D'Amico looks like he'll call the defenses, which I've learned through the decades. I want a head coach focused on the game. I don't want to be distracted by calling plays. But D'Amico is the best defensive play caller on the staff. And we'll see how that works out. You know, Bill O'Brien and Romeo Crennel have been a head coach twice. And David Culley had Romeo Crennel. And I just think that's good to have guys like that. Maybe they'll end up hiring somebody like that. But right now, that's the only thing I see on that staff that I question.
All right. Now, what's your thoughts on the receivers in the Hall of Fame?
Last year in Andre's first year, and I presented him to our committee, and he made the cut from 15 to 10. The next cut is 10 to 5. And if he makes the hot 5, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He didn't make it. Reggie Wayne and Torrey Holt didn't survive the first cut. This time, Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne, and Torrey Holt all survived the cut from 15 to 10. And then none of them made the 5. Everybody says on our committee they all deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but we're never going to take 3 receivers. Usually, we're not going to take 2. And I don't care if they did it in the order in which they've been waiting. Torrey Holt has been waiting the longest. Reggie Wayne second, Andre third. I don't care, but we don't do things like that. It's going to be hard because of that reason. If just one of them will make it, then it might help break that logjam. But I told Andre, I want to be honest with you. It's going to be hard as long as all 3 of you guys are finalists every year, which you will be. And then Larry Fitzgerald's coming up, and he's going to be a lot. So Andre's been great. He's been patient. He says he understands the situation. I said it's not that people don't think you belong, is that they may think Reggie Wayne or Torrey Holt belongs first. And so I don't know what to tell you. I think he'll get in at some point. I just don't know when.
But do you think there will be one a receiver period that goes in next year, or will it be like it was this year?
Oh, I think it'll be just like it was this year, next year.
Oh, all right.
I think it'll be that way for a while. We had that way with Chris Carter, Andre Reed, and Tim Brown. We got so frustrated. And then finally one of them made it, then the next one, and we're like, we finally were able to break that logjam. That's the way it was with Swan and Stallworth for the Steelers. They cancel each other out for years.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this one doesn't take years.
Yeah.
Do you see?
Sometimes it feels like it takes.
Oh no, I was just saying. What was you gonna say?
Go ahead, RJ.
I love Eddie George. I covered Eddie here his first year, and I know him really well. He gained just a little over 10,000 yards. He's been a finalist a couple of times, but people aren't going to put him in over Fred Taylor.
Oh yeah.
I don't think they'll put him in over Ricky Waters or Roger Craig. And I'd love to see Eddie get it sometime, but I don't think it'll be anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, does anybody else have anything else to add?
Yeah, I got one more.
Of course.
I know you've been on. I know you've been on some pretty good movies. You know, like Spring Breakers. You're on the longest yard, The Rookie. What movie that you were on?
Well, truthfully, I spent 9 hours in a courtroom in Florida with Selena Gomez, Vanessa Hudgens, and Ashley Benson, who was on a show called Pretty Little Liars on ABC, and the director's wife, Harmony Korine was the director, and Rachel was his wife, and I was a judge sentencing them to go back to jail. And James Franco, first time he was seen in the movie, he was in the courtroom. And I spent 8 hours mainly. They had to shoot Franco from 50 different angles and 3 people with him. And then they had to shoot the girls. And I took a bunch of takes. First time I did a take, they go, action, I'll start my line. Director goes, cut. He said, Judge, you can't sentence them without looking at them. And I said, well, I feel like a dirty old man. He said, you're a judge. Look at them, because they're all wearing their little spring bikinis and everything. So spending 8 hours in that courtroom with them wasn't too bad.
Right. The
The
judge
longest
and jury
charge
of
was
that
a
one,
lot
right?
of fun too, because they had so many famous people on that, and ended up getting seen by a lot of people, making a lot of money. Get to hang out with Adam Sandler. He was a big sports fan, a great guy, and I was been around him quite a bit on movie sets. And then Burt Reynolds, who was one of my heroes in the '70s, and he just couldn't have been nicer to us, and so that was an incredible experience as well.
Awesome.
I have one more question before we wrap up. You know, how long? What would you? It was 20 years that you were writing, but you're still writing now, right? You retired and then unretired.
My 52nd year in the business, and I've covered. I was 4 years the Waco Tribune Herald.
Take that back.
Taylor, and then I came down here in '76, started on the Oilers in '77, and retired from the Chronicle March 31st, and then took a job at Mattress Mac at Gallery Sports. So it's been 52 years and probably 46 covering NFL.
Well, goodness, I was way off. But that being said,
I'm old.
What-
I wish it was only 20.
you look like it's only been 20. That's what it was. I was assuming.
Thank you. I know it's a lot,
You're
but thank
welcome. That being said, so you've been doing this for such a long time, and so many things have changed in sports broadcasting, sports journalism since you first started. What is it that's different that you like, pros and cons, and do you have any advice to the younger generation getting into it?
First of all, when I started in this business, it was probably through the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, mid 90s. Like media could watch all the practice. We could talk to assistant coaches coming off the field. There'd be us with them, whether we were interviewing them or not. Everything was so loose. And somehow Vince Lombardi won 5 championships with that. And you see all these dynasties, and they had that. And then all of a sudden, it started with Bill Parcells after he won his second Super Bowl. He decided he is not watching practice, no assistant coach talks, and I talk. And so I reminded him one time, you never get to another Super Bowl after you put those restrictions on the media. And he said, are you trying to tell me that I didn't go to another Super Bowl because of what I did with the media? I said, I'm just saying. And so others started to do that. And now you can't just go in a locker room like with the Oilers. We could go before practice and go hang out in the locker room. If you want to talk to a player, you could. If you didn't want to talk to you, you'd say, I don't want to talk to you. Or you go to the weight room or the shower or the restroom or on the field. And then we could talk to them afterward. We could hang out in the lockers and get to know them, talk about their families there, where they played college football. And now you get 45 minutes. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. You just stay 1 minute longer, you get tasered. And it's just the restrictions are so much more for journalists today. And I'd say journalists, there's so many people in the media business that don't have any training. They're in there because they're fans and because they want to be in that business. And it offers a lot of opportunities online. And that's the way everybody's going, is online. At some point, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal will be the only surviving newspapers printing every day, and everybody else will be online. And that's why there's so many more opportunities today because of that. And the internet has changed everything so much compared to the way it used to be. And I feel bad that people younger today covering teams in any sport don't have the access we used to, where you can go sit down with the general manager in his office. Bum Phillips was the head coach of the Oilers. I could go into his office and watch tape he put up players and he trusted me. If he told me something off the record, same way with their personnel people. And when Charlie Casserly started with the Texans GM, Charlie came from Washington where they were kind of old school. He respected the writers, and he carried that respect here and always appreciated it, not always liked working with Charlie. And I was at an event in Florida, Reggie Jackson's Mr. October fundraiser last month. There were 40 Hall of Famers there, and Patrick Mack told me to go cover it. And I was sitting at a table talking to Warren Moon, and when Warren played, I mean, you're never friends with people when they play or coach. But after your career's over, you can be friends because there's no conflict of interest. And I told Warren, I said, I always appreciate the way you treat me with respect. And he said, I consider you a friend, and I have for a long time, and I always will as long as I'm breathing. And I thought that was about the nicest thing anybody ever said to me. And those are the kind of things you don't talk about with people when you're covering them because you may have to rip them. There was a couple of people I liked, and I had to be critical of them, and they didn't understand. I thought we were friends, and so I had to be careful about that. So I would say that you don't get to know today the players and the coaches like you used to, and that's too bad because most of them are really good and interesting people.
Yeah, and I feel like COVID made that even worse, honestly. It's a shame, really. But anybody else have any final questions before we wrap this thing up? Anybody else?
Thank
Matt,
you for coming
don't
on.
have any more questions? I'm shocked.
I do, but
I know.
I'll ask one more. This one's kind of to help me prove Harish I'm right. John, why is J.J. Watt better than Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney?
Oh man!
Hold on, I'm gonna sit back. I'm gonna sit back for this one.
JJ's a 3-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year award, and probably is the second greatest pass rusher in the history of Reggie White. And Dwight Freeney is a great player. Mathis was a good player. And one of the things about them, they were drafted by Bill Polian because they were smaller and quicker because Polian knew with Peyton Manning, Edgerrin James, and Marvin Harrison, and Reggie Wayne, and Dallas Clark, they're going to score a lot of points. And they're going to be ahead in third and fourth quarters. So the opposing team wasn't going to run the ball a lot. They were going to throw it. And he wanted those ends come flying off the edge, put pressure on the quarterback, and that strategy worked great. And I don't think Robert Mathis will get in the Hall of Fame. I think Freeney will, but Watt will be a first ballot inductee.
Well, I withhold comment on Robert Mathis, but anyways, he don't like me very much. Mr. McClain, tell us where you're at now. I know you told us at the beginning of the episode, but to wrap it up, where do we find you? How can we find, do you have Twitter? Where's all your good stuff at? All the good stuff.
My Twitter is McClain _on_NFL. I'm approaching 152,000 followers. So anybody wants to follow me, that's how you do it. I work for GallerySports.com, and as Mattress Max says about delivery, it's free. There's no paywall like newspapers. And I work for SportsRadio610.com where I write, and I'm also on there 6 times a week, as well as weekly radio shows in Nashville, Knoxville, Las Vegas, San Antonio, and Waco, my hometown.
Nice. Well, I will actually be in San Antonio this summer, so I'll make sure I'll be listening while I'm there.
I'm on ESPN affiliate every Thursday at 5:30.
5:30 a.m.?
No way.
5:30 p.m. Okay. I was gonna say, John, we might have to record that one. I'll listen later because I'm not gonna be up at 5:30 a.m. All right.
Me either.
Everyone else, tell us where to find you. Josh.
Okay,
Alan.
go ahead.
Josh Gives Up on Twitter. It's where you can find me. It's the easiest place to get a hold of me.
All right, RJ.
You find me on Twitter at _ the RJ Show, or you can find me on my podcast, Titans Coliseum. I got the shirt on, so
Harish.
You can find me at the Uncle Gandhi on everything spelled right. Here. Oh, there it is. You can find me everywhere, mostly on Twitter, but you can find me everywhere else.
Matt.
And of course, you can find me on the Texans fan battle on Wednesday nights and A1 Day One Texans everywhere.
And you can find me on Twitter at Sammy Football with an I. Make sure you tune in next week. We're going to do same time, same place, Sunday at 9:30. We're going to do division updates. And make sure you follow us on TikTok, Twitter, all the goods. Make sure you follow Mr. John McClain on Twitter. And we thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure to have you on here with us and answer our questions, as annoying as they may be. And we appreciate your dedication to sports, because 52 years, that's mind blowing. That's man, I love it. So I appreciate your dedication.
It's my pleasure, guys. Nothing was annoying. Anytime you need me, just let me know. And I hope you guys have a great week.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on. Thank you so much.
Sam loves
All right,
Jalen Ramsey,
guys.
don't forget.
Oh no, every time. See y'all next week.